11 years ago, we saw the release of the PC cult classic American McGee's Alice. This title took the concept of the Alice in Wonderland novels, which already have undertones of violence and insanity depending on how you look at them, and made it much, much darker. So let's talk about that game for a bit. This title saw Alice in an insane asylum 10 years after a tragic fire had killed her family. Being the only survivor and having trouble coping with her loss, she once again returned to Wonderland. Upon returning, she found that the Wonderland she once knew had become twisted and demented, mirroring her fractured psyche. So, Alice went on a quest to save Wonderland once again, thus saving herself. The game initially released to very high praise and great sales, and since then the game has become somewhat of a collector's item. And now, 11 years later, we finally see the release of the sequel, Alice Madness Returns. So, how does this game hold up? Well, let's take a look and find out. This game begins some time after the original, as Alice is in the care of a psychiatrist named Dr. Bumby. While Alice is still having trouble coping with the loss of her family, and still believes that there is more to their deaths than she can consciously remember, Dr. Bumby tries to repress her memories and believes that she should move on with her life. Soon, Alice begins to lose her grip on reality once again, and is transported back to Wonderland. While all seems well at first, Alice soon realizes that beneath the patina of normalcy, Wonderland is even more broken than it was before, and is slowly breaking apart. So, it's up to Alice to once again venture through Wonderland to recover her suppressed memories, and once again regain her sanity. This game is set up much like the first one, in which it is an action platformer, so let's start with the action segments. Wonderland is full of enemies this time around. Each chapter adds a new form of enemy, and many of the enemies return in later chapters in order to mix things up. The enemies vary from various forms of ruin, to samurai wasps, to vicious playing cards. So, with all of these enemies, how is Alice supposed to defend herself? Well, not to worry. This game equips Alice with 4 primary weapons. These weapons are her trusty Vorpal Blade, which is your standard close combat weapon, her Prepper Grinder, which is similar to a Gatling gun, her Hobby Horse, which is her heavy bludgeoning weapon, and the Teapot, which functions similarly to a mortar type weapon. These weapons all have 4 different tiers and can be upgraded at any time via the pause menu. In order to upgrade these weapons, you need to collect teeth. Before you ask, I don't get it either. Teeth can be found by killing enemies, breaking objects, or by finding hidden areas. Speaking of hidden areas, let's talk about the shrink feature. At any time, you can shrink Alice in order to gain access to many areas via keyholes. However, along with just gaining access to smaller areas, shrinking also activates what is called Shrink Sense. Shrink Sense is used to find hidden areas, or it could show invisible platforms which may be needed to progress. By finding these hidden areas, you can find memories from Alice's past. These memories are small quotes from people that Alice has known, and these quotes help give you a better overall understanding of the plot. Along with just finding memories, you can also find many minigames. These minigames differ depending on the chapter, from answering riddles to piloting a ship underwater. Completing them gives you some sort of prize. Some of them just allow you to progress through the chapter, and some of them give you rose paint. Collecting 4 vials of rose paint allows you to get another point of health. Overall, this game is 6 chapters long and will run you around 12 hours. Now for the reviewing. The graphics in this game are really hit and miss. The characters and enemies are all fairly well rendered, however, it's the environments where I have the problem. Some of the environments, such as this card fortress and the beautifully gray-colored streets of London, look alright. On the other hand, some of the environments just look dull and poorly rendered. The same can be said for the gameplay. The combat flows fairly smoothly, and with the addition of a dodge option, you have a better chance faring against the enemies. They have also added a hysteria option, which lets you turn into a juggernaut when your health is low, giving you a second chance if you're in trouble. The problems with the gameplay lie heavily in the platforming. Usually you won't have too much trouble with this, as you can triple jump and then glide, but oftentimes the control in this respect are very stiff. This was also an issue in the original game, I know, but that was 11 years ago. The final issue I have with this game is how repetitive it is. Every chapter in the game has a similar pattern. Fight, platform, minigame, rinse, lather, repeat. The problem doesn't lie in the platforming and combat, but rather in the minigames. These minigames are fun initially, but oftentimes they just slow down the pace of the game, and they usually lose their novelty after the first time. Sheesh, after so much negativity, there must be something good to say about this game, right? Well, the combat is well put together, and the graphics are occasionally good, but the strongest point of this game is the story and the atmosphere. Overall, the story isn't as dark as its predecessor, but it still does convey a fairly bleak atmosphere, and it does do a good job at showing the fracture of Wonderland overall. And honestly, that's why I enjoyed this game so much. There were little flaws here and there, but as a fan of the original, I found a fairly rewarding experience. So, who would I recommend this game to? Well, if you were a fan of the original, then I would definitely recommend picking this up. If you're a fan of action platformers, then I would at least recommend giving this game a try if you don't mind repetitive gameplay too much. So, until next time, this has been eDog, and I've just reviewed this game. Kalau Kalay. See you next time.